Hello. On today's episode, we're going to go over a crazy attack on a surfer, some attacks on swimmers. We're going to end the show with what were you thinking? It's going to be a great show. Stick around. Okay, we'll start out the show over at Morro Strand State Beach, and that is in California. The date, August 29th of 2015. Elinor Dempsey, she's 54 years old, and she was out doing some surfing. It was about 10:30 in the morning, just before 10:30 in the morning. She's about 90 meters or 100 yards from shore in 12 to 15 foot deep water, so 4 to 5 meters deep water, somewhere in that range. And it's 10:30 in the morning, and she notices a large animal swim diagonally under her board, so towards the sea from shore. So it kind of went underneath her board and was kind of aiming out to sea. And she didn't think nothing of it, and she doesn't know how long it was afterwards, but it was probably pretty shortly afterwards that the shark breached. The shark breached, and she said that the shark its body was about 8 inches from her face. So the shark swam under her board, disappeared, and all of a sudden it's up out of the water, and right on her face the body is. As it crashes into the water, she's knocked into the water, and the first thing she does is she starts swimming her way to shore. She says she started swimming, and out of the corner of her eye she could see the shark back there biting on her board. And she swam about 30 feet and it took a stop to rest, saw her board there, so she reeled in her board, got on the board, and took it in. She ends up with no injury. The board ends up with a 14-inch wide, 8-inch deep gouge taken right out of it. They say this was a 12-foot great white shark. She didn't have a very good look at it. She saw the body right in front of her face, but she didn't even notice like the mouth or anything else. She just saw the body. And a couple of surfers were nearby. One of them was about 100 to 200 yards away when he looked, and he saw the shark breach and grab her board in its mouth, and he said it was just a huge animal. She gets herself in. Now, it was reported that other local surfers, 3 men were bumped by they assumed the same shark, so it went and bumped a few surfers, and the lifeguards were clearing the beach. They hadn't made it to that part of the beach yet to close it down. That ended up happening. So it looks like an aggravated shark. It looks like this thing was going around and it was going to pick and choose who it was going to go after, but it was sick of people being in its water with those boards, and it took its action. And luckily for the victim, she wasn't a victim because she escapes with no injury, just a, like you say, a souvenir for her wall, and she'll have to buy a new board. So that's our attack on Elinor. An attack, not an attempt to predate, a fatality to the board, and it's a 12-foot great white shark. We're going to head over to Main Beach, and that is in Australia, and the date is March 30th of 2000. Anrija Rojcevic, he is 26 years old. He is out doing some swimming. He is about 100 meters from shore, so 110 yards from shore, no telling of the depth. And it's about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. He is swimming. He's outside of the breakers, and he's near a protected beach where they have lifeguards, and he's bitten by a shark. Single bite to the leg. It ended up being a bite that went down to the bone, and it removed flesh. It was about 11 inches long, 2 inches wide, so it ripped a strip of flesh right off of his leg. He gets rescued, gets in, and he ends up surviving the attack. They said they believe this is a 2.5 meter, or about a 7.5 foot shark. They're not sure of what kind. So this goes down as an attack, not an attempt to predate, by a 7-8 foot shark, 2.5 meters, and we don't know what type. Okay, now we're going to head over to Wabasso Beach, which is over in Florida. The date is October 21st of 1984. Larry Peeples is 22 years old, and at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, he is out doing some swimming at Wabasso Beach, and witnesses reported a man disappeared underwater. He was on the way, they saw him, and then he was suddenly under the water, disappeared. They searched for his body. They could not find him. This was on a Sunday. 2 days later, on Tuesday, his body was recovered. This turned out to be fatal. They didn't describe any of the wounds to the body, and they ruled it as a drowning. Well, there's no way this is a drowning. You're not going to just drown and disappear like that. It doesn't. Nobody said that the man was in distress when he disappeared under the water. He just disappeared under the water. That's a shark, and you know. Who knows what kind of shark? Any of those kind of sharks will grab you and take you underwater like that. One of the big three, I would imagine. It's highly unlikely any other kind of shark is going to do that, especially in that area. If you're over in Australia, you have your bronze whalers that you really have to worry about out there. But you know, sandbars and things that are in Florida aren't going to grab you. I don't even think you have to worry about a lemon or even the sand tiger sharks, and they're not going to do that. It's going to be one of the big three. So I'm assuming one of the big three got a hold of this guy, 22 years old, took him under, and they recovered his body 2 days later. It sounds like he was probably pretty mauled up. I'm going to put this down as an attempt to predate. There's nothing else I can do without having info on the wounds to the body. It's odd that they don't have anything, and I couldn't find anything on his attack in my newspaper clippings, other than a mention in the attack that happened a half hour earlier, 1 mile from there. So now, same date, October 21st of 1984. Sandra Fletcher, she was out doing some bodyboarding. She's out in the water, she's in the shallows, she had just taken the wave in. This is 1:30, it's 1 mile away from where Larry Peeples disappeared a half hour after this attack. There's an attack here and then Larry Peeples disappears, but I doubt it's the same shark. But she just falls off of her board in the shallows, and it's about 1:30 in the afternoon, and she feels a clamp on her arm. She feels the pain of the shark on her arm, and she's able to get her arm out of the shark's mouth. The shark tried to drag her out to sea. She was able to get her arm away and get into shore. She gets in 140 staples it took to be able to fix her up. They didn't know at first whether she'd regain all the use of her right hand, because I believe it's her right arm that was bitten, and the right fingers, they said they didn't know if they would work. But after 3 surgeries, I saw an update in another clip that they were thinking that she would be able to use it. She's a school teacher, by the way, and I'm going to put a few clips in there. One of them's about her going back to her class, but interesting story of the attack in there, and she survives the attack. It's an attack, not an attempt to predate, and they said this is a 5-foot shark, and being in Florida, I would think that it's, you know, a spinner, a black tip, one of those sharks that's in there probably feeding in the shallows in the surf, and saw an arm flash in front of it and grabbed a hold of it and instinctively went to drag it back out to the deep water like they do. I doubt it has anything to do with the gentleman that was attacked a half hour later, only a mile away. And sure, a large shark could make that trip with no problem in that amount of time and attack another person, but she was attacked by a 5-foot shark, and I highly doubt that what dragged him underwater like that was a 5-foot shark. It sounds like a big shark that grabbed him from underneath and just took him with him. So that's our attack on both Sandra Fletcher and Larry Peeples. Larry Peeples is a fatality, an attempt to predate. We don't know what kind of shark, and if we're not going to record, but it's a 5-foot shark, not an attempt to predate on the other victims. So that's our story on those 2 attacks. We will move on. You know, we're going to head over to the Galapagos Islands, and the date on this attack is January 27th of 1959. Theodore Swienty, he is 57 years old. He is out on a charter. It sounds like he's standing on the back platform of a charter boat, on the stern platform of it, and he is fishing for tuna. Now in the water, there's tuna all in the water, there's sharks all in the water, and there's blood all in the water because they chum the tuna in. He loses his balance and falls overboard. He falls overboard into a shiver of sharks. Weird name for a pack of sharks, by the way, because it only takes 1 shark for me to shiver, so why do I need more than 1 shark to shiver? I like pack, so I'm going to use pack. He falls into a pack of sharks, basically, and blood and tuna. He right away curls his body up into a ball, worrying that these sharks are going to try to attack him, and sure enough, they do. The first one comes over and grabs him by his foot and bites his foot. As it tries to take his foot, he kicks that shark, and he tries to pull himself back in, But just as that, another shark comes up. His left foot is bitten by the first shark. Now another shark comes up and bites him in the right leg. So now he's gotten bitten in the right leg. He's gotten bitten in his left foot, and he kicks that shark off. Now he was wearing a helmet, and this helmet, it was white and it popped off his head. And he credits his helmet for saving his life. The helmet floats up or away, and the sharks all go after his helmet, and that allows him to get back up to the boat, get onto the boat, and get help. They went ahead and sewed up his injuries. They said that he would recover, heal perfectly from this. So it was superficial wounds. It sounds like it wasn't very deep. They didn't know the species of the sharks. I think that it's probably a mix of sharks in there. Galapagos is probably, if they have sandbars around, things that are going to be in the water, or bulls, things that want those tuna. We lose them to sandbars and bulls probably over in the Keys when we fish for the tunas at the hump. So same thing probably happened here, but to fall into the water with them, that's bad news, especially when you were chumming for them. I mean, we fish for tuna and we chum, but you put a little block of like oats and fish guts and stuff that's all frozen, and it slowly, just little pieces of it are going off there. It's not this bloody thing that's going on. And it sounds like what this charter was doing there. So he ends up one lucky fellow that they went after that helmet when it fell off, because it could have turned into a feeding frenzy situation if they had gotten a couple more bites in on him and just turned all the sharks into madmen. So that's our story of Theodore Swienty. An attack, not an attempt to predate. We don't know what kind of sharks. We're going to finish our unprovoked attacks over at Telyavosky Bay, which is in Russia. The date is August 17th of 2011. Denis Udovenko, he is 25 years old. He and his girlfriend go into the water. It's in the evening. Doesn't sound like it's dusk, but it is in the evening. And they decide to swim out to a rock formation that's about 300 feet out. And they start swimming, and they get about halfway there, so they're about 150 feet from the rock. I'm assuming 150 feet from shore. No telling the depth of water, and like I said, it's in the evening. And Denis sees a fish in the water, and he yells at his girlfriend, "It's a shark, swim faster." So they're swimming to the rock as fast as they can, and all of a sudden the shark comes up to Denis, grabs him by both of his arms, and his girlfriend says lifted him out of the water and slammed him back down into the water, and then tossed him into the water. The shark probably swam off at that point. Boaters came over and hauled the two of them up out of the water, but both of his forearms were gone. It severed both of his arms in this attack on Denis. He ends up losing both of his arms to this shark. They said that it's probably a great white shark that did this. I think we might have covered another Russia attack, but we don't get a lot of them from over there. That's our attack on Denis Udovenko. An attack, not an attempt to predate, by a great white shark, probably. So we're just going to leave the shark blank along with the size. I'm sure it's very large to lift him up by his arms up out of the water and throw him to the water, as his girlfriend claims. So that's our regular show. We'll be right back with What Were You Thinking? Okay, before we get to the end of the show, I'd like to say please hit like, hit that subscribe button. If you want notifications, hit that notification bell, and you'll be all set with that. www.sharkshappen.com. That's where I have my website store. I have pens, hats, shirts. Everything's on sale. The prices are to get rid of everything, and that'll close it out. So those are limited items, and once they're gone, they're done. Also, the Etsy store, where you can get the jackets, the towels, mugs, all that stuff. That's all on Etsy, and that's sharkshappen2.etsy.com. So those are the two stores. Now we're going to finish out with What Were You Thinking? We got another dead shark, land shark, dead shark. So we're in the dead shark again, and this is in 1958. Takai Otiai, he was by a disemboweled shark, so somebody had taken the stomach contents out of a shark already. Shark's mouth seemed to be open, and he stuck his hand inside of the shark's mouth, and the shark ended up clamping down. He ended up with laceration on his hand. No telling what type of shark it was or how big the shark was. But again, these dead sharks, they got that mouth open. Leave it alone. Don't mess with it. You know when it's right to be able to touch those shark teeth? When good old Quint here, when he gets those things, he gets his tongs and he takes those shark jaws out of that vat of steaming water where he's cooking off all the fat. that's when it's okay to touch them shark jaws, when they're open. That's the show for today. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you join me another few days for another full episode of new attacks that we will cover. And until then, if you go into that water, you are much more afraid of those sharks than they are of you.